It's not in my mental spectrum. That is a word I can't relate to.
There's always one more mountain to climb.
I'm 65 and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up.
I did it!
Ageless Heroes is made possible by Blue Cross Blue Shield.
At her home in upstate New York, 71-year-old Eartha Kitt relaxes. A side of her that belies the fact that for decades, the press and public have labeled her one of the world's most sensuous and versatile performers in the world of entertainment. Her home is bedecked with mementos of a career that has spanned more than half a century, one filled with major successes and setbacks. But through it all, Eartha Kitt has endured. Eartha Kitt has starred in film, theater, television, cabaret, and dance, and is the author of 3 best-selling books. She has been nominated for Emmys, Tonys, and Grammys, and was called by Orson Welles the most exciting woman in the world.
Now please welcome Miss Eartha Kitt.
Today, after more than 5 decades of international acclaim, she challenges time and the ever-changing audiences she has to face.
Because every day is different, and every day makes me a different person. Not basically different, but the innuendos within myself are slightly different. Therefore, the songs themselves, even though I have been singing them for 45 years, 50 years maybe, the funny ones I think have become funnier to me. And maybe the dramatic ones have become more dramatic.
I'll ask for such simple things when my birthday occurs.
To apartment buildings that are labeled hers and hers. I want an old-fashioned house
with an old-fashioned fence and an old-fashioned millionaire.
Rising from an impoverished childhood, she began her career as a dancer with the famed Katherine Dunham dance group, which toured throughout Europe.
But the music that excels,
captivating audiences, she went off on her own. Able to sing in 10 languages, she became one of Europe's most sought-after cabaret performers. After her success in Europe, she came back to the United States and continued to reach new heights in nightclubs, the stage, motion pictures, and television.
You're the Sheik of Araby. Belong to me.
Perhaps the television appearance she is most remembered for was her role as Catwoman in the Batman series.
Our next move is to purloin and, if possible, permanently purge Batman, Batgirl, and Robin, the boy wonder.
Offstage, she became a leading spokesperson for many causes, an advocate for social reform in ghettos and poverty-stricken areas. But the role had its dangers. To many, she was the Don Quixote of theater. 41-year-old Eartha Kitt was attacking windmills. In January 1968, she was invited to the White House for a conference with Lady Bird Johnson.
The invitation title was, "Why is there so much juvenile delinquency in the streets of America?" And when I told Mrs. Johnson what I felt about our involvement in Vietnam, was not only my opinion, but obviously it was more than half of Americans' opinions. And I would say the majority of Americans felt the same way. But Mrs. Johnson asked me this question. And that's why there was so much furor, because I think she was expecting me to, what they say, be diplomatic. But we were not there for that reason.
I do feel that we were there to talk about juvenile delinquency and where the crux of the matter lies. And that is what I told her.
The luncheon comments by Eartha Kitt had their tragic consequences. Her career suddenly went into a nosedive. 7 years after this luncheon with Lady Bird Johnson, the New York Times revealed a government dossier.
On the dossier, it said, by the request of Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, I don't want to see that woman's face anywhere. In other words, get rid of her.
Almost 10 years to the day of the Lady Bird Johnson luncheon, 51-year-old Eartha Kitt's sincerity as a spokesperson for Americans opposing the Vietnam War was finally appreciated. She was invited as an honored guest of President Jimmy Carter commemorating the reopening of the historic Ford Theater. So Eartha Kitt goes on. Today, at age 71, her personality and talent still transcend age. As sensuous and beguiling as she was when it all began more than a half-century ago.
I'm cut.
Cutting. Thank you. Beautiful. Lovely.
How old are you?
29.
The fact that I was not wanted, I was rejected, I'm illegitimate, I'm not the right color. I was called an ugly duckling, I'm called a yellow gal, and the blacks don't want you, the whites don't know what the hell to do with you, and I did it!